Hello and welcome to the Ruslan Belov channel. The battles continue and we keep analyzing the situation at the front. So friends, over the past 24 hours, Russian forces have done something incredible. First of all, they took control of 4 streets in the city of Pokrovsk. But more importantly, they made a 7-kilometer push and cut off the road leading to the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration from the north. They also entered Rodinske, took the spoil heap, Terrakon, and captured the mine. So as I said, they've done something truly remarkable. As a result, all 3 cities are now on the brink of complete encirclement. I'll talk about this in detail a bit later, so be sure to watch this entire report to the end. But for now, let's go through things step by step, as usual, and eventually arrive at Pokrovsk. Let's move from north to south. Starting with the Sumi region, not much happened there. The AFU, Armed Forces of Ukraine, made a minor advance in the forest belt east of Kondrativka, about 200 meters. Now compare that to the Russian breakthrough near Pokrovsk, 7 kilometers versus 200 meters. You can feel the difference, right? Moving on, in the Kharkiv region, we saw some gains on our side. Our guys managed to capture 2 AFU strongpoints and advanced 800 meters, reaching the railway tracks. And where do these tracks lead? They lead to Kurilivka and Kupiansk Vuzlovyi. Usually the front here is static, but lately our guys have slowly started to apply pressure. The territory gained over the past 24 hours in this area is about 1 square kilometer. I think they're gradually managing to shift the front here. The AFU are having serious problems around Kupiansk itself. They're urgently moving in reinforcements. That's why it's become easier for us to move. No changes in the rest of Kharkiv region for now. Now, where there have been changes is near Siversk. Our guys have been tearing it up lately. We'll summarize the results for July in the Siversk direction in a bit. In July alone, they took 23 square kilometers. For comparison, in all of 2024, they had taken only 6 square kilometers in this area. And now, 23 in just 1 month. And they're still moving. It's only the beginning of August. And they're continuing to advance. In the past 24 hours, they pushed forward another kilometer and are now right up close to Siversk. From current positions, the distance to the city is just 500 meters. There's even video of the attack, showing how they forced out the AFU and advanced on motorcycles. Overall, a very good result. Who would have thought a couple of months ago that we'd be at the outskirts of Siversk, or that Pokrovsk would be on the verge of full encirclement? So, let's now talk about Pokrovsk and that 7-kilometer breakthrough. Before we get to Pokrovsk and the breakthrough, let me just quickly mention one more area where the AFU had some movement, near Torska. But in general, everything around Torska and the left bank of the Jerebets River is a constant tug of war. Sometimes Russian forces advance, then the AFU push back and so on. No one is making significant progress in the end. Now let's get to the really significant development, our major breakthrough. The eastern flank of Myrnohrad. Just look at what a beautiful operation our guys pulled off. A breakthrough from current positions all the way to the railroad tracks leading to Pokrovsk and even beyond, toward the highway. The depth of the breakthrough was 7.2 kilometers, and it's a very important and effective gain. Let's break it down. First, during the advance, our fighters captured a key elevation. The spoil heap, Terrakon. Let me show you a terrain map so it's clearer. You see, it's a height right at the entrance to the city. This hill had prevented Russian troops from entering Rodinske, but not anymore. Now this elevated position is under Russian control. There's another elevation to the west, but the one captured by our troops is much higher. This means the entire city, including that other hill, is now under Russian fire control. There's nothing stopping the Russian forces from entering Rodinske, which, by the way, they did. They entered the administrative boundaries of the city from the north. But that's not all. See what lies just north of the spoil heap? That's the Krasnolimanska mine, a heavily fortified area. And it, too, is now under Russian control. The mine and its buildings are secured. What does this mean? The 2 main defensive positions protecting Rodinske, the hill and the mine, are now in Russian hands. Let's continue. The city is now blocked from the north, and Russian fighters have pushed further, physically cutting the railway and almost reaching the main highway. The current distance from our positions to the road is just 500 meters. Obviously, nothing can travel on it anymore. Even small arms fire can fully cover the road. So, one of the main objectives, cutting off northern logistics to the entire agglomeration, has been completed. The next step is to widen the breakthrough zone to the north. At a minimum, we need to take full control of the villages of Suketske, Zatshok, and Fedorivka. Then the control here will be much more solid. But considering that the Russian army now controls both the height and the mine, I'm confident that the zone is stable and likely even larger than what we see on the map. And I'm more than sure we'll see more major developments here in the coming days. If you look at the big picture, you can see that the whole agglomeration is now on the verge of being fully encircled. The AFU now only have 2 roads left to escape the city, and both are under Russian drone surveillance. The distance between them and Russian positions is only 4.5 kilometers. Now it's clear why the situation inside the city is so difficult for them. In just a couple of days, Russian forces managed to take and clear 4 streets in Pokrovsk, 4 streets in the southern part of the city: Raskovaya, Tobernaya, Privolnaya, and Sevastopolskaya. And there's objective footage from this part of the city, so these aren't just claims. Everything marked here has been confirmed by visual evidence. Russian fighters are moving through the area, calmly, slowly, without fear. Maybe not everything is true, but I believe at least part of it is. Otherwise, how can you explain how quickly things are collapsing for the AFU here? How the Russian troops are managing to take entire streets and neighborhoods so fast? In just 3 to 4 days, this part of Pokrovsk was taken and cleared. They broke through to the city center and took control of the central market. Now this section of the city has also been secured. At this pace, it's not a stretch to say that by the end of August, the entire city might be under Russian control. And honestly, given that Russian forces have essentially, no, not essentially, but completely, cut off the logistics, it's quite possible that by the end of the month, not just Pokrovsk, but also Mirnohrad and Rodinska will be under Russian control. Well, maybe not by the end of August, but by the end of the summer campaign, sometime between mid to late September. But it really does look like this is where things are heading. Especially when you look at how quickly AFU positions are collapsing in Pokrovsk, how easily breakthroughs are occurring, and the fact that all their northern logistics have been severed. It's more than realistic. At the very least, it no longer seems like some kind of fantasy. We'll be watching developments closely. Now, I'd like to summarize the results of July with you. If you remember, we also did this for June, and I received a lot of positive feedback from you. Many asked me to continue these monthly summaries, so let's get to it. As usual, we'll go from north to south. Sumi region, there were some issues in July. Those who regularly follow the reports know what kind of problems and where. In Kondrativka, the AFU counterattacked throughout the month and eventually, by the end of July, managed to push Russian forces out of the village. I had said from the very beginning, as soon as they launched the attack and made a breakthrough from the north, that due to the frontline configuration, Russian forces wouldn't be able to hold the village. And that's exactly what happened. This red line here shows where the front line was on July 1st, and this is where it is now. So the territory recaptured by the AFU measures 8.2 square kilometers. On the other hand, the Russian army also made some gains, advancing slightly from Alexievka toward the village of Mala Korchakovka, taking control of Vorochina and improving positions in Yunakovka. So in essence, July in the Sumi region saw what you could call a trade-off. The AFU retook one village, Russian forces took one. The AFU gained control over 8.2 kilometers. Russian forces, 9.2 square kilometers. That's a net gain of just 1 square kilometers for Russia. For comparison, in June, Russian forces had captured 50 square kilometers here. So it's safe to say that the Sumi front stalled in July, and I don't think we'll see any major advances here in August either. Kharkiv region. Things were much more active in July. First, the Vovchansk sector came to life for the first time in nearly a year. Russian troops managed to cross the river and enter the southern part of the city. They secured some blocks inside the city and took control of a forest area west of it. Also, good results were achieved in the Milov area. Not only was the village itself, a fairly large one, taken under control, but Russian troops also advanced 5 kilometers from Milov toward Katna. In the Dvorishne sector, they expanded control near Krasne Persha and took over the Zalivnoy forest. But the biggest successes in the Kharkiv region were near Kupiansk. The area around Kondrashivka was cleared, and the villages of Radkivka and Holubivka were taken. Russian troops also entered the right bank part of Kupiansk city. The AFU had some successes, mostly limited to one area. Here they recaptured 2 villages, Zarizova and Nova Krukhlakivka, plus a small area to the north. By the numbers, this is clearly a Russian success. Russian forces gained 46.8 square kilometers in July in the Kharkiv region, while the AFU recaptured 17.9 square kilometers. That's a net gain of 28.9 square kilometers for the Russian side, almost 3 times more than in June. For context, in June, the net gain for Russian forces in this region was just 10 square kilometers. Luhansk region. Before moving to Dnipropetrovsk, let's quickly touch on Luhansk. There's not much to say here. In July, one village, Krakivka, was fully cleared, and control expanded slightly west and north of it. Total territory taken was 5.5 square kilometers. The AFU made no gains here. Donetsk region. This is the largest region and where most of the action took place. Let's go through the key sectors first, then summarize. Lyman direction. In July, Russian forces took about 20 square kilometers here. You might say, well, in southern Donetsk, that much is taken in a single day sometimes. True. But here, Azov units are stationed. And love them or hate them, they are elite, fully equipped, experienced formations. So results are very different. The capture of the village of Zelenaya Dolina and 20 square kilometers is a solid achievement for this sector. Right bank of the Zherebets River, AFU counterattacks pushed Russian forces out of this area. However, Russian troops advanced in Torske and improved their positions in the Serebryanske forest, as I mentioned in a separate report. The numbers ended up nearly identical. AFU regained 12.3 square kilometers. Russian forces took 12.6 square kilometers. So, like last month, a draw. Siversk sector, surprisingly productive in July. Russian troops significantly expanded their control between the villages of Hrihorivka and Verkhnyokamyanske, getting as close as 1 kilometer to the city of Siversk. The total area taken in July, 23 square kilometers. For comparison, all of last year saw only 6 square kilometers gained in this direction. Chasiv Yar sector. In July, troops finally managed to secure the entire city. This happened on the very last day of the month, July 31st. Chasiv Yar is now under Russian control. That chapter is closed. It's the only city captured in July. The area gained here, 5.5 square kilometers. Kostiantynivka sector. There were advances to the east and south of the city. Russian troops took control of the villages of Bilahora, Petrovka, and Yablunivka, nearly secured Oleksandr Kalinove, just half a street left, and finished clearing both Delivkas. The remaining portion of Kalinove will go into the August tally. Total area gained here, 32 square kilometers. Eastern flank of the Pokrovsk agglomeration. This was the biggest success for the Russian army in July. Just look at the map. All this territory is now under Russian control. That's over 100 square kilometers. The key gain was the capture of the urban-type settlement of Novoekonomichne, a strong AFU defensive hub guarding Mirnorad from the east. Now it no longer does. It's now a Russian staging area, from which, according to Ukrainian reports, further attacks on Mirnorad are being launched. Additionally, Russian forces reached the outskirts of Rodinske, less than 3 kilometers away. I'm confident that by the end of August, the situation here will look very different, and even more favorable for Russian troops. Pokrovsk direction. Numbers are smaller here. 23 square kilometers were taken in July. But the key event was the breakthrough into the city center. And who knows, maybe by the end of August, all or most of Pokrovsk will be under Russian control. There's a real chance, since AFU defenses have collapsed. Southern Donetsk region. Things also fell apart for the AFU here. Over 100 square kilometers came under Russian control, thanks to the Vostok Group. They took 7 villages in Donetsk region and 2 in Zaporizhzhia. We'll count Zaporizhzhia separately. So for southern Donetsk alone, 102 square kilometers taken. Overall, for Donetsk region, Russian forces gained 335 km in July. The AFU retook 12.3 square kilometers. Net Russian gain, 322.8 square kilometers. Zaporizhzhia region also saw clear progress compared to June. Villages taken, Timirivka, Maliivka, and Malinivka. Positions improved in Mala Tokmachka. Forces crossed to the right bank and cleared the village of Kamyanske, now fully under Russian control. Russian troops also entered Plavny and reached the outskirts of Stepnohursk. Total area gained here in July, 38 square kilometers. For comparison, only 7 kilometers were taken in June. That's a 5.5x increase. Momentum is obvious. Final summary. In July, across the entire front, Russian forces took control of 435 square kilometers. The AFU recaptured 38 square kilometers. So net gain, 397 square kilometers in favor of Russian forces. That's your quick and clear summary of what happened in July at the front. And with that, today's report comes to an end.